carbs aren't nutrients. They are not nutrients, and they are not fit in macronutrients. Which that means is the definition of nutrients is whether it's like our body is requiring it and it's very nourishing. That's the definition of nutrients. And carbs, our body doesn't require it. It is because our body can produce our own glucose. Don't get me wrong. Glucose is still important for our body, it's still essential, but it's a low amount. And we don't need to consume any single of 1 grams of carbohydrates. We don't need to consume any foods that contain carbohydrates. It is because the glucogenesis process will be always active. No matter what you eat, no matter what you do. You are like listening to me and I'm like talking to you. The glucogenesis process is active. It's always like chronically will be active no matter what you do. The thing is, it's like they always active within like 10% of margin rates, which basically they're gonna be like always active. So there's no reason for you like consuming carbohydrates, which basically exogenous of like carbohydrates was like very glycating, which that's the number one and number two. Number one is like it's not required, our body is not required of it because our body can make our own glucose. And also we have like the access, we have like a waste product. They can convert the fatty acid from to glucose, which basically we have like the excess backbones triglycerides will be like convert to glucose, which roughly around like a teaspoon size, which basically that's all our body needs without causing any glycation, without causing any, without like spike your blood sugar above the set homeostatic set point of blood glucose, which causing glycation. What that means glycation is why it's like really not optimal. It is because glycation is like advanced glycation end products, AGEs, which basically is bind the protein in your blood and makes you aging faster. Is there a reason for you like aging faster? There's no reason for doing that. So it's just like glycating. They just like strip our protein in our blood. That's why carbs aren't like required and they are not nourishing because they are glycating. They are not they are very glycating, and at the same time our body can produce our own glucose. And it always chronically active. Even though you're consuming high carbohydrates foods, you're consuming low carbohydrate foods or no carbohydrates, medium carbohydrates, low carbohydrates, and no carbohydrates at all, your glucogenesis process will still active. That means our body will still produce your own glucose. Even though you're consuming high amount of like carbohydrates, which glucose, you're consuming high amount of glucose, but the thing is, the glucogenesis process will still gonna be active. Even though you're consuming like exogenous of glucose. And when you're like consuming exogenous glucose, it's very glycating. And the worst part is it can cause like insulin resistance, which basically when you're consuming exogenous of carbohydrates, it spike your blood sugar above the homeostatic set point of blood glucose, which basically your organ pancreas produce hormone insulin to trying to suppress it down because high amount of like blood sugar in your body is really toxic. So that's why insulin hormone is produced to suppress it down. And and what's the problem is the insulin hormone is it's like one is a aging hormone which basically make you aging. So basically you have like two compounds. One from the insulin, which are aging hormone, two from the advanced glycation ends product, which comes from the carbohydrates. Glycating is an aging hormone and also like is a fat storage hormone. So basically if your goal is you want to be lean, you want to lose the body fat, and you consuming exogenous of carbs, it can inhibit the lipolysis process. It can inhibit fat burning states, which basically lipolysis is a metabolic process that broken down your store fats, like triglyceride, to glycerol and also like free fatty acids for energy, which basically is very conducive for fat burning. And a lot of people say they want to lose weight, but primarily they want to lose weight is water weight and also like fat, their body fat. That's their like main goal. The thing is, you can lose weight by chopping off your arms, but doesn't. But I don't think like a lot of people want that. A lot of people want to lose weight through like their water weight and also like body fat weight, which basically in consuming exogenous of carbohydrates was like very conducive of these two. It is because one, when you're like consuming a lot of carbohydrates, the extra of glucose will be like convert to glycogen, which basically 1 gram of glycogen store 3 grams of water. So basically we store more water in your body. So basically your face will be like puffy, and also like you will increase your weight in overall. This number one, carbohydrate, exogenous, they will convert to glycogen. Other than that, carbohydrates was like, what do you call that? It makes you overeat. It is because, as I talked earlier, when you're consuming exogenous of carbohydrate, it will spike the blood sugar, and and when there's a lot of like blood sugar in your blood, it's really toxic. So basically our body is smart, literally it produces insulin hormone to suppress it down. But the problem with the insulin hormone is a fat storage hormone which inhibits fat burning state, which they are not allow you to burning fat. They literally block the leptin hormone, which is a satiety hormone, makes you full, and upregulates like ghrelin hormone, which basically ghrelin hormone is a hormone that makes you hungry, so makes you easily overeat. So way more harder for you to being lean, to lose weight. If you want to like, if you're like consuming exogenous of carbohydrates, that's number one. They're aging you faster, and also they are not very conducive if you want to being lean. They can easily make you overweight. So if you care about your weight, you probably like cut off completely, because there's no essential nutrients over there, and also like there's no like and also it's really very conducive for fat burning state, because when you're consuming high amount of carbohydrates, it's literally blocked from your body to burning fat. They will prioritize to burning glucose. And our body only prefer two sources of energy, whether it's like carbohydrates, which glucose, or fats for energy. And our bodies prefer fats for energy. It is because fat has essential nutrients, like fat soluble vitamin A, which retinol, D3, K2, vitamin E, which essential nutrients for our body, while carbs, even though a lot of people say our body main fuel of energy, but the thing is our body prefer fat. And why, like, okay, maybe people might say that if our body prefer fat for energy, that means is we have to like consume high fat diet. Then why a lot of like studies shows out there that having a high fat diet was like very like dangerous, very inflammatory. You will get risk. You will get like cancer. You will get like building a plaque in your arteries, which basically can lead to heart attack. Then why, if our body prefer fat for energy, then why like a lot of like study that shows that having a high fat diet is very dangerous? My reason is number one is It depends what types of fat you get. If you get from the polyunsaturated fats, which PUFA, which they are like two or more double bonded, which they are not stable, they're prone to lipid peroxidation, which can lead to oxidative stress. And also you oxidize your LDL, which basically you have a rusted LDL. The simple is, if you get from fat, you get the fat from source from the PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acids, and also a high amount of MUFA, which basically monounsaturated fatty acids. Both of these in high quantities, very high, like seed oil, vegetable oil. Of course, you're gonna get a problem because they're really sensitive to the heat, air, and oxygen, which basically they easily oxidize. And what's the problem with oxidized? It is because when you're consuming too much of oxidized oil, it's like really damaging our bodies. It is because it's really inflammatory, and also it can cause like oxidative stress, which basically can damaging your DNA. I'm not sure, but it's really inflammatory. I'm not sure about this, but it's really can cause oxidative stress. That for sure. When you are like, consuming high amount of like oxidized oil. But if you like get the fat from the saturated fats, which has like single single bond, which they are more stable, they are not easily oxidized, saturated fats, then you will be fine. Then you will be like, there's no like other issue. Even though you're consuming high amount of saturated fats, but it's still fine. The problem is the people get the fat source, they think it's our bodies prefer fats, right? And then the mistake is they get the fat from the polyunsaturated fatty acid and monounsaturated fatty acid in high amount, which basically this type of fats was very, very like easily oxidized compared to the saturated fats, which much stable. But and here's another reason thing. This topic is really complicated, right? Then people might say they saw in the study having a high amount of saturated fats in the diet was very not healthy, was very like, at the same time building plaque in your arteries, lead to heart attack, cancer, whatever it is, like negative things, right? All of them like association study. They are not like scientifically proven. They are not like cause and effect studies. And let me explain cause and effect study. And cause and effect study is not like really scientific. It's not like proven. They're just like garbage. Association studies like we have a two group. For example, I'm a doctor, right? I'm a researcher, whatever it is, and I research about two groups. This group consuming high amount of vegetable, this group consuming high amount of red meat, ruminant animals, flesh and fat. But the problem is I'm not controlling all the variables. What that means is, for example, I'm not like strict, like control everything. I just observe them. And you can imagine the type of people who are like consuming high amount of vegetable, usually like the type of people that like was like health conscious, which basically they exercise, they also get enough of sleep, they also like having a low stress life, which basically, and also they get like sun exposure too. They're just like healthy people having a healthy lifestyle. And can you imagine the type of people who are like consuming high amount of like red meats? Like the type of people like for example is like contractor people. They're smoking. They're like sleep deprived. They're drinking alcohol. The type of people that are most of the type of people that consuming high amount of red meats. They also like at the same time like they eating burger, they eating like oxidized oil, like PUFA and MUFA, they eating junk food. They also like eating fried foods, which basically fried foods is like one of the most hierarchy that really hurts your health. They also like eating junk food. So basically, they are not like the same. We are not like control everything. Cause and effects. So basically, association studies like garbage. There are a lot of like variables. It's not like red meat cause like heart attack. Maybe it's like the junk food they're eating and at the same time alcohol and sleep deprived. Maybe that's the reason. But we are doesn't have any scientifically proven for that. This is the association study. Cause and effect study is we control all the variables. This group consuming high amount of vegetable, this group consuming of high amount of red meats. That's all we are. The difference is everything is same. This group are not consuming alcohol. This group also are not consuming any alcohol. This group exercise 1 hour. This group exercise 1 hour. Everything the same, and the interesting part is we have to log these people for decades because you know diabetes and also like heart plaque progression, your arteries takes time. It's not like overnight. It takes like decades. It takes few years. So basically, you have to log these people doing the same thing. Exercise 1 hour, exercise 1 hour. Everything is same. The difference is this consuming red meat, this group consuming high amount of vegetable. But the thing is, we don't have that kind of study. So basically, all you see the study that says saturated fat was unhealthy, was dangerous. Consuming of red meat consumption is really dangerous. The thing is, all was association study. The fact is, the interesting part is, we have this like study that shows that keto individuals who have like very high of LDL. A lot of like people say LDL is a bad cholesterol, it's really bad for your health. People, keto individuals have a very high LDL, which is basically 272 on average. And they've been observed for 5 years and there's no like plaque progression in their arteries. They've been observed for 5 years and they on average they have like 272 LDL, which is very high LDL. So basically it shows that having a, even though it's not cause and effect study, there's still association study, but you can see it's really hard to get a cause and effect study. Really, it takes a lot of cost, takes a lot of time. Do you think there's people gonna like commit doing the same thing for over like few years? Exercise 1 hour, get some exposure 1 hour, doing the same thing, doing the same activities. They are not able to go to the party because they have to stay the same. They are not able to eating junk food because they want to stay the same. So you got the point, right? I'm yapping too much, but I hope it's common sense. Carbohydrates are not required, our body can synthesize it, and it's not nourishing for our body, it's glycating, and also it's not very conducive for if you want to being lean, and being lean is healthy. It is because and being lean also very conducive to high testosterone because when you have like extra fat, extra adipose in your tissue, it can aromatize your testosterone to estradiol, which is the active form of estrogen. Man, I'm tired, man, talking to this. But it's common sense. Do your own research. You repeat the video, trying to understand it and doing your own research. I'm trying to give my literally so valuable content, valuable educational content, so that you can being optimally being attractive because attractive equals to being optimally healthy. And also, if you care about being optimally healthy, you want to live longer, then this advice is really like helpful to you. Like I do like tons of research about this. Carbohydrates are not necessary. And also if you think about it, the foods that carbohydrates comes from, usually like they are deficient in 26 compounds that are essential or beneficial, which basically you only found the 26 compounds in like animal foods products only. And if you do found in a plant's foods, they are not like bioavailable. They are not like bioavailable form. Which basically, for example, maybe spinach has zinc, has like iron, whatever it is. The thing is, they are not like heme iron, which basically our body need heme iron, not iron only. Which basically vegetable that has iron must be converted to heme iron, and the conversion rate is very low. And also like there's other like anti-nutrients, plant toxin. Same thing with the rice. Same thing with the grains. They have like phytic acids, which are mineral magnets. It strip away your water, it strip away your minerals like magnesium, iron, zinc. So there's no reason for doing that. A lot of like carbohydrates, you when you're like consuming carbohydrates, for example rice, they have like fatty acids, they're deficient in micronutrients, which are 26 compounds which essential or beneficial, like the active form of B6, methylated B12, like EPA, DHA, choline, CoQ10, conjugated linoleic acids, carnosine, carnitine, taurine, creatine, and so on. If your goal is to being attractive, it's literally you have to being healthy first. It is because you want to fix your skin issues, you want to fix your body fat. It just all relies on the diet mostly. And it is because if you have a lot of problems, for example, is you want to try to eat carnivore diet, but the thing is your parents like against you. They say cholesterol is really bad. They say that saturated is really bad, even though there's a new study that shows that it's really crucial and it is essential and there's no problem in high amount. So all the problems I will solve there, and all my nutrition guide I will support you. Link the description below where I have a guide that teach you all the knowledge you need and also solve all the problems which basically that hinder your goals to achieve the to being optimally healthy in the diet. So link in the description below.